Alhassan Bello, what is happening in Ethiopia?
It's actually about the future of the country. It's a clash of vision and a clash of ego.
Clash of vision and a clash of ego.
Yeah.
I like that. Ego and
Yeah,
vision.
yeah.
Interesting. Take us through it.
Interestingly, Ethiopia wasn't colonized, but in its federal system, these are regions that are controlled by ethnic group. So this region, the Tigray itself, where the
So what you have here is a map of Ethiopia.
the current map of Ethiopia.
Okay.
This region is controlled by the Tigrayan people. That is called the Tigray region. Here you have the Oromia, which constitutes the largest ethnic group. So each ethnic group controls its own ancestral land, as in the region. But then, in the current form, powers are more centered in the regional government than the central government.
Because of the federal system.
Because of the ethnic nature of the system.
The system is already federal.
Yeah, it's federal.
But it has ethnic undertones.
Yeah, so each region is defined by ethnic group that are occupying that particular place. For example, let's assume Ashanti region, only the Ashantis form that core of the group. Okay. But then, post-Melik Zenawi, there's an attempt by Abiy Ahmed to re-centralize Ethiopia and take away some powers from the regional government. And that created a rift between he and the former TPLF, who were the dominant group.
Melik Zenawi died, the famous Ethiopian president of recent times.
Yeah.
Was he replaced by the one who is now there?
No, he was replaced by Haile Mariam Desalegn.
What happened to him?
He was forced out of office by a protest that was largely led by the Oromia group and by the Oromo ethnic group. But then to understand how we got to this point, we must take a detour back to the history of Ethiopia itself in the course of nation building. And then we'll still come back to this map. And then these particular ones. And then these are the four groups. Four people fighting. The clash of ego is about Abiy Ahmed, the current prime minister. And then the leader.
So they have a prime minister, so that's
Abiy Ahmed.
A bicephalous. Do they have a king in the bicephalous executive arrangement?
They have a president.
President and prime minister.
Yeah, it used to be a monarchy.
Is the president a non-executive president?
Yeah, non-executive.
Okay.
So here's the prime minister, Abiy Ahmed. And then this is the leader of the TPLF rebel group, Gabriel Michael. And then you have Demeke Mekonnen. And this is another important actor in this current conflict. Then we'll come to the Jawar Mohammed, because he spearheaded the protests that brought about Abiy Ahmed into power.
Jawar Mohammed is Muslim.
He's a Muslim.
Is there some relationship with maybe fundamentalists in Egypt or something like that?
He's from the same ethnic group as Abiy Ahmed.
Does he prosecute his agenda within an Islamic context?
No. In a secular context. He's languishing in jail at the moment.
Oh, I see. Who put him in jail?
Abiy Ahmed.
For what offenses?
In actual sense, you see, due to the ethnic nature of the Ethiopian federal system, for you to have a role at the center, you must have strong political position in your home region. But because the protest was led by the like of Jawar Mohammed, because he's a media mogul, he controls a media group called Oromo Media Network. But then Abiy Ahmed is from the ruling party, the former ruling party itself. So there's a clash of idea between these two personalities, and Abiy Ahmed jailed him because the guy was more popular than Abiy Ahmed in his home region, Oromia. But they will still come to that. But this is the founder of modern Ethiopia, Emperor Menelik, who famously resisted the Italian colonial encroachment.
Around which year? The early 1900s?
The 18th, I think that was around
late 18th.
Yeah, around 1863 when he resisted the Italian advance towards Ethiopia in the Battle of Adwa. But then you see, Menelik is not just considered the founder of modern Ethiopia because he resisted colonial rule, but because he equally defined the borders of present Ethiopia. You know, in African tradition, there are some times where you conquer a territory, you make it a tributary state where they are your vassals, but they're not under direct control. So there are some parts of Ethiopia today that were just tributary states of the Ethiopian Empire.
Conquered by Menelik.
Yeah, but they were then annexed and added to the Ethiopian Empire. A typical example is Hara. The Emirate of Hara was actually annexed in 1887 by Menelik. But prior to that, they were just tributary states to Ethiopia.
How was Menelik so militarily powerful? Was he rich?
I think he understood the Ethiopian system and was able to galvanize the royals, the ras, the landlords, the nobility in general, in a collective fight to resist Ethiopian rule. But then he succeeded because he had a very good general with him, Ras Alula. This was the main brain, the military strategies that led to the defeat of the Italians. He's also actually from Tigray.
I see, north, Tigray in the north.
Yeah, so the Tigrayans have always been part of the Ethiopian system. And then, after Menelik, after being able to defeat the Italians, every Ethiopian leader that came after Menelik walked under the shadow of Menelik and felt he's a Menelik of his own era. And that defines their downfall.
I see, that's interesting.
Haile Selassie, for example, grew in the royal palace with Menelik, but then he was very young. I see, after the Italian defeat, in the 1863. Mussolini refused and came back in 1936 to occupy, Ethiopia. So when Haile Selassie was restored back to the throne through the collective efforts of the British and the West African troops that fought along the colonial masters, Eritrea was ceded by Menelik to the Italians because he realized that in an attempt to push the Italians to the coast, you still call for more fight. Why not cede a portion of your territory to them and then retain the independence of the other half? So he gave Eritrea out to the Italians in order to safeguard the rest of his kingdom.
The bigger Ethiopia.
Yeah, the bigger Ethiopia. But then, after the Italian defeat in the World War II, Italy sided with the Axis powers. Eritrea was federated back with Ethiopia.
By the winners of the war, the British and the Allies.
Yeah, the Allies. Because in 1951, Eritrea was given under British mandate by the UN. By 1955, it was incorporated into Ethiopia as a federated entity with its own autonomy, just like we have in the 1951 to 1954 internal self-rule in Gold Coast. So they had their own form of internal self-rule, and as well as share some element of power with the central government in Ethiopia. By 1969, Haile Selassie abrogated that arrangement and annexed Ethiopia back.
Annexed Eritrea back?
Eritrea.
Back to Ethiopia?
Yeah.
Why do the Ethiopians speak English as their national language if they have never been colonized?
They speak Amharic rather.
They speak what?
Amharic.
Amharic?
Yeah.
What's that? Is it Arabic?
No, it's a Semitic language. That's the language, the native language of Haile Selassie.
Okay.
But at the regional level...
Are you saying Aramaic?
No, Amharic.
Amharic. That's different from Aramaic.
Yeah.
Do you know what Aramaic is?
Yeah, the
historical, the Abraham language.
The one Jesus spoke.
Yes, the one Jesus spoke. Yeah, the historical Jesus of Nazareth, of Jerusalem. Yeah. Okay.
This is the guy who...
This is Mengistu Haile Mariam. He was military?
Yeah, he was a military officer.
Okay.
He used the student protest against Haile Selassie as a pretext to overthrow the emperor.
And the emperor died in the process, or he died later?
No, he died in detention in 1975, if I'm not mistaken. But he was also very brutal.
And Mengistu?
Yeah. A lot of human rights violation. In fact, he killed more people than any African leader, if I'm not mistaken.
He died now?
No, he's still alive.
Mengistu is still there?
Yeah.
How old is he?
I can't remember his age.
Okay.
But he was sent to exile post-defeat. So then came Meles Zenawi.
Who seemed to be a great unifier, fantastic brain.
Yeah, at the surface, everything looked calm. But you see, the Tigrayans in Ethiopia constitute just 6% of the population. But they wielded so much power.
And that's where he came from. He's a Tigrayan.
Yeah, Tigrayan.
Were they rich?
I can't tell.
Okay.
But then, I think they were the most strongest rebel group in the alliance that overthrew the other Mengistu regime.
Yes.
So, by so doing, they had more stake in power. And then the current leader of the TPLF was his deputy in the TPLF party. You have to have a role in the regional party to have a say at the center.
Yeah.
But when strong men go without strong institution, there's meant to be chaos. So in absence of Meles Zenawi, everyone was now challenging the other remnant of TPLF for a share of power. But the bulk of the protest was coming from the Oromia region, where Abiy Ahmed is from. So there's an attempt to make an eternal reshuffle. So post Meles Zenawi, we had this guy, Haile Mariam Desalegn. He was supposed to douse the fire, but he couldn't contain the tide because instead of stopping the tide, the Amhara ethnic group also joined the Oromia in protest. That around somewhere around 2014 to 2016. So there was a need to make an internal reshuffle. And then Abiy Ahmed, being an Oromo ethnic himself, was brought to douse the fire from Oromia region. That's how come Abiy Ahmed came onto the scene. So he was brought onto the scene by the protest led by Jawara Mohammed.
So who is the deposed president today?
No, we are coming to that side.
Okay.
So Abiy Ahmed was brought to power by the effort of this gentleman, Jawara Mohammed, because he controlled media network and has a strong followership in the Oromia region.
Which is one of the biggest, yeah?
Yeah, the biggest. But when Abiy Ahmed came to power, he was supposed to be a gradual reformer, but he embarked on a swift reform to also consolidate his base within the ruling party. So two things led to the current situation. First was the election that was postponed in 2020 to 2021. The remnant of the TPLF, who have lost power from the center, but also consolidated themselves at the region, felt that Abiy Ahmed was doing that deliberately to strengthen his hold on power, so as to marginalize them. So they refused to accept the ground upon which he was postponing the election. But he cited COVID-19 as a reason. And then secondly, there's a security concern for the Tigrayans. After the fall of Mengistu regime, there was ethnic groups. So there was a referendum in 93. Eritrea went out of Ethiopia. But there was a border dispute between the Tigray region, led by the TPLF, and the Eritrean state. And by going to negotiate with Isaias Afwerki, Abiy Ahmed further isolated the Tigrayan groups, because Badme was being disputed, but was under the control of TPLF. By agreeing to withdraw from that town and handing over to Eritrean, he placed the Tigrayan security at risk.
Okay, so tell us what has happened now. Let's go back to the map and tell us what is happening in Ethiopia right now.
So now what is happening in Ethiopia is that everybody is converted. There's a clash of steel here. And on the rebels, being smart, okay, are advancing towards the Amhara region.
Where are the rebels coming from?
Tigray.
Okay, they are Tigrayans.
They are Tigrayans.
But Addis Ababa is all the way down here.
Addis Ababa is here.
Yes, so they will not get to Addis Ababa unless they have.
But the rate at which they are advancing is very fast. And now, funny enough, you know, the former ruling party, as an ethnic party, the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, had minor parties within it. The TPLF, the current opposition. You have the ADP, Amhara Democratic Party from the Amhara region. Abiy Ahmed's initial party, ODP. But then he has been able to merge all these groups into Prosperity Party. With the exclusion of the TPLF, who refused to join the arrangement, because it's an attempt to re-centralize Ethiopia. And then by being weakened in his home house, the Oromo region, he's weakened, so he had to jail this guy in order to secure his victory. Now,
so he's currently still in jail?
Yes, currently in jail. But if there's a free and fair election in Oromia today, there's a possibility of this guy winning Abiy Ahmed hands down.
For the Oromia region, as governor of Oromia.
So whilst Abiy Ahmed has been able to isolate himself due to his policies and lost credible support in not just his own region, but around certain part of Ethiopia, the TPLF have been able to form a coalition of other minor rebel groups, which they now call United Front of Ethiopian Federalist Congress. So whilst Abiy Ahmed is losing allies, the TPLF rebels have gained several allies.
So what's happening to the government in Addis Ababa right now?
So now, the government in Addis Ababa is only dependent on one force, which is the one led by, and that's where this guy comes into the scene, Demeke Mekonnen. He's the leader of the Amhara region. Now, by Abiy Ahmed being unpopular in his house, he's not dependent on these guys' militias, the Amhara Special Forces.
But where is the irregular Ethiopian army?
Back to how the country was formed. In the defeat of the rebels, there were ethnic militias. So each region retained its own militias. But a little, number of groups were brought to the federal level. So the regions are militarily stronger than the federal government.
Oh, I see.
So if you realize that on the first 1 year of the war, the 4th November attack was used as a pretext to embark on offensive. We still don't know whether the attack actually came from the TPLF, as is claimed by Ahmed, or it's actually a false flag attack to embark on his mission. But it appears now that the offensive was successful because Eritrean soldiers were involved. But there were a series of massacres in Tigray, and that led to international outcry. And then the Eritrean soldiers were pulled out. And since the Eritrean soldiers pulled out of the war, the federal troops were losing ground. But now Abiy Ahmed is not dependent on the Amhara Special Forces to win, to fight the war. And this is the leader of the Amhara Special Forces.
So let's go to the map and give us your prediction so we can wrap it up.
So what it means is that now, the only condition for peace is now two. Tigrayans are under siege. Aid is not going through. If Abiy Ahmed wants to secure peace and we have to go to negotiating table, then first of all, there must be safe corridor for aid. But then, TPLF must also withdraw from certain areas of the Amhara region they have conquered. Else, the Demeke Mekonnen wouldn't accept to negotiate. So Abiy Ahmed is not the problem, the obstacle to peace. Peace can only be arrived at if the Demeke Mekonnen agrees to talk. Abiy Ahmed is just a face of the regime now. He has lost support in his native region.
Are Somali supporters backing any of the rebel groups?
Fine. The Somali region in Ethiopia actually consider themselves to be colonized by Ethiopia.
I see.
So if you remember the Ogaden War between the Ethiopians and the Siad Barre, and was fought because of the irredentism of the Somalis.
Yeah, yeah.
And the same with the Somalis in northern Kenya. They still wish to go back to Somalia. And you know, these are Muslim, largely Muslim, what you call ethnic group, in where what they consider to be Christian-dominated areas. So there's still that need to move back to the ancestral land which they consider to be Somalia. But now the obstacle to peace is very simple. If the Mecca Makonnen is to go to negotiating table, if Abiy Ahmed was to go and negotiate, then it has to come with the acceptance of the Mecca Makonnen, because he's the only person keeping Abiy Ahmed in power today. Because if you look at your strength in your region, gives you a say at the center. Abiy Ahmed has lost his popularity in Oromia today, so he's not dependent on the support of the Amara ethnic group. And then for the Amara ethnic group, why they are supporting Abiy Ahmed is very simple. Historically, they are the dominant group. The monarchs were from the Amara ethnic groups. Or with the rise of the Tigrayans, they were out of power. So now any attempt to re-centralize Ethiopia is an attempt to bring them back to the center.
Oh yeah, as a monarchy.
Yeah, no, not as a monarchy, but as an important ethnic group in leadership, because the Tigrayans actually isolated them. And then Ethiopia being a landlocked country, there's this belief that it was made deliberate by Meles Zenawi. Every attack into Ethiopia has always come from the Red Sea. And then all the wars have been fought mostly in Tigray. The Battle of Adwa was fought in Tigray. And then for Ethiopia to be able to resist successfully, it took great organization and great sacrifice. And the Tigrayans always felt that they have always paid the price for Ethiopian safety. So there's this belief that in 1993, when the referendum was being held, Meles Zenawi intentionally ceded this part of Ethiopia. Assab is a port city. But there's speculation that he intentionally ceded it out to the Eritreans in order to secure Ethiopia. Because for the Tigrayan, security is very important. But now we shouldn't forget that there are two foreign countries that are also important in this equation. One is Eritrea and one is Egypt.
I'll leave it here, Bello. I'll leave it here.
Well, let me quickly add this.
Concluded. Very interesting.
Now, Abiy Ahmed appears to be losing ground. The question is, would he still not invite his Eritrean backers to push further into the war? And for Egypt, is the issue of the ground renaissance dam. There's a dispute about when Ethiopia should finish filling the dam. So any instability in Ethiopia gives Egypt room to also secure its water supply. So the question is, would Egypt also not side with TPLF in its offensive in order to unseat Abiy Ahmed and secure its water supply?
Water supply from Ethiopia?
The Nile water.
From the Nile water, okay.
The Nile gets its source from Ethiopia. And Ethiopia is building this largest dam in Africa, Grand Renaissance Dam.
To take energy from the Nile.
Yeah. But there's a fear by the downstream countries of Sudan and Egypt that their water supply will be shortened. So for them, any instability in Ethiopia, that shifts the focus of the Ethiopian government from filling the dam to what do you call it? Saving itself.
Yeah.
Give them time
to find alternatives.
So the question is, would Egypt also not back the TPLF in its offensive against the federal government? And now it appears that
just to create the stability.
Yeah. But funny enough, the Tigrayans have been very smart in ways on that. Even in the Somali region where they were very unpopular, they create surrogate parties. So now they've been able to form alliance with smaller groups within the other ethnic regions. And to make it look as if it's a national, resistance against Abiy Ahmed. But in reality, it's just another TPLF attempt to come back to power. But the question is, having been under TPLF dominated Ethiopia for almost 30 years, would other Ethiopians feel safe and willing to still accept another TPLF existence in power?